We got a question. That's right.
Well, welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Shannon Bailey, and I'm the Chief Curator here at the World Chess Hall of Fame. I've actually been working here for over 6 years. I was the first full-time employee, so I've been having a good time with all of these great exhibits. And so I'll be leading the tour today along with Allred, who is our assistant curator, and she's been here for almost 4 years. Yeah. So we together curate shows, we independently curate shows, and then we work with other scholars and curators. So I worked on this show. We both worked on the third floor show, which she did most of the work. And on the second floor show, we had an independent curator, but she was the organizer of it, so she did a ton of work on that. It's so nice to see some new faces in here. It's hard to believe, but it's also very exciting that, so we just celebrated our 5th anniversary on, well, we had our opening on September 29th, but we opened actually September 8th, 2011. And we are just a couple people shy of hitting our 60,000th visitor. So we're really excited, and we've got 12,000 people in here just this year alone. So yeah, really, really excited. So yeah, the Hall of Fame has been in St. Louis for 5 years, but it actually has existed since the mid-1980s. It was in New Windsor, New York, Washington, D.C., Miami, and then it moved here. It started off as a museum for a bunch of chess enthusiasts who thought that there needed to be a Hall of Fame for chess. And so they started inducting players, and actually the Hall of Fame has more than just players. It's a lot of people who just contributed to the game of chess overall. And they started with a modest collection, and it kind of grew. It opened up in Miami, actually in a large institution that was owned by a man named and he was an electronics and computer kind of guru and had a business, so he was actually known for creating the first chess computers for sale in the 1970s. So when the recession hit in 2008, the business had issues and then they had problems keeping up with the museum. 2008 and 7 is around the time of the chess club opened up across the street. All these people started seeing that there were all eyes on chess, in St. Louis, so they thought, well, it should move the collection here. Just complete coincidence, this building opened up across the street. It was for sale. It was an old doctor's office. We still get Christmas cards sent by doctors. Pies, like seriously, pies in here. Like, when was the last time you went to the doctor? The building was renovated and the collection was transferred to St. Louis. So what's really fun about it, and I think one of the reasons why we have 60,000 visitors, is that we don't just do chess history shows. As you can tell, we really kind of focus on chess and culture. And that's great because there are so many connections with that. And it also relates to kind of the desires of our major funders and founders of St. Louis. So they're really into Boy Scouts, music, arts, culture, chess. And so we kind of get to mix all of those here. So, Emily, do you have anything to add?
I guess the fun thing about when the museum came here was that it really expanded its mission. We get to be very creative in drawing connections between chess and popular culture and life, and so we like to say, you don't have to be a chess enthusiast to come here. You can love art, and we're happy to teach you more about the game and send you across the street for a free lesson too on your first visit.
So this exhibition here is called Designing Chessmen, a taste of the imagery of chess, and it is actually a loose recreation of an exhibition that took place in 1944 in New York at the Julian Levy Gallery. Julian Levy was really important in terms of bringing surrealism to the United States and kind of promoting it. He and his partner and a friend and his partner were vacationing in Long Island one summer, and they were running a house, and the house didn't have a chess set, and they were bummed, so they thought, hey, we're creative people. So let's create our own chess set. So this is actually the prototype that was plaster cast made from the eggshells from their breakfast that morning. They wanted it to be portable, and so they wanted to be able to play in the sand. Actual places that we were on the Philadelphia Art Museum. This was the set that was made from it. There were actually a couple pieces that have been lost over time. And when they got back that summer, they thought, well, we have all of these creative friends. Let's see if they can create new and interesting chess sets. And so they got about 32 to 38 of their friends together, and they created this exhibition. We have several of the original pieces. We've got bios and examples from some of the other artists, and we have some of the original artwork.
And I want to add, just working with Shannon, one of the other things I absolutely love about her team is that they take a museum concept and turn it on their head a little bit. Pictures are encouraged, social media posting is encouraged, so anything you see, you like, you have an affinity for, please photograph, post it, share it. We just love having new faces through the galleries, and thanks to Shannon and her team and the amenable nature of being able to share these pictures, except where it says don't take pictures of the callers. Everything
Just a couple.
Yeah, just a couple. And get drinks. I think that's another thing. It's like we encourage community, and we see lots of familiar faces who come in, and it's a very comfortable setting. So while they show extremely high-end art, photograph, eat, drink, and be merry, it's just one of the few places I think where you can experience that high art and also be very comfortable and enjoy.
And please feel free to jump in and ask questions or make
Yes,
comments
that's
as
right.
we're going along on the tour.
So were these carved out of hard-boiled eggs, or how is it that...
Well, those were plaster cast, and these were made out of wood. And then the seashells they needed a place for these to rest, but it also kind of showed the fact that they developed the idea at the beach. So kind of fun. The reason why this show is really kind of so very important is that it was at the height of World War II. So if you're not familiar with the art scene, that's when the art world moved over to the United States, because there was this influx of artists fleeing Europe and the Nazis at the time. There's some playful pieces in this show. There are some very dark pieces because of the impact of the war. This set was actually, no one knows what it actually looks like, so every time it's redone, it's brand new kind of concept. There was a description that there were mirrors. These were two critics. They hated chess. They thought chess was stupid, and they thought that it could be like a narcissistic game, and so that's where they used the mirrors. They just used a bunch of different glassware, and so, I mean, it's just as simple as these glasses are from Crate and Barrel, and it's $2 chuck wine from Trader Joe's. We had the board custom made once we determined the size and shape of the glassware. I liked it because it was very angular, and it kind of looks like some of these other pieces in the show as well. So it's really fun, playful, even though they wrote a whole manifesto about how chess was playing to accompany the piece. They had artists, they had a psychoanalyst, they had these critics. I'm trying to look around at some of the pieces. Musicians, 2 original art scores were written for this. Some of the pieces were sold at the time. Other interesting things, again, World War II, there was rationing, there were limited supplies, so a lot of these pieces were made out of recycled materials or brand new. We were so sad it couldn't travel, but this clear piece, like right behind Ben on the wall, it's the third one in, was actually done by a 21-year-old artist named Richard Filipowski. And it's made out of plexiglass, and it's kind of hard to, kind of wrap your head around that was a brand new material at the time. It wasn't able to travel because it actually, just in the last couple of years, started to deteriorate because it must have been an unstable kind of furniture at that time. So they're kind of bummed. We got the eggshells and the things from Philly, but that piece was unable to travel. So it's just really fun. It's a good way to look at, kind of trends at that time. As I said, this is the height. A lot of these artists are surrealist artists. A lot of them were very established. Marcel Duchamp was one of the main organizers with it. We've got the original invitation, some great photographs from the exhibition. It was heavily covered in mainstream media, as well as arts journals and chess journals at the time. So it's really fun. And I really This is the show where I get to explain to people, like, this is why we get to do what we do here now. Because of an exhibition like this that mixed together all of these different ideas and thoughts. And it was just really fun. It started off that we were just going to have a few of the pieces, and then as I started acquiring more, I was like, well, why stop here, why stop there? And then my registrar found a couple more pieces. And what I'm really excited for is after this show ends, we're doing a St. Louis version of it. We're reaching out to local artists and musicians and poets and see what they can come up with. And they don't have to be chess players. Some of these artists were way into the game. And in fact, they had a grandmaster come and do a blindfold Simon with them. And please check out these pictures because you can see them, playing on some of these sets, with the Max Stern set and Man Ray. So it was just really fun. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of your conversation. How many different locations are these pieces held? They're not all in the same museum?
In this room, like where our loans are from.
Right.
So a couple of them are in Rex Singfield's collection. So this Man Ray, this is a later version. This one was done in 1962, but he came up with a lot of the concepts and drawings for this show. He also owns this reproduction of the Noguchi. 5 of the sets are from the Philadelphia Art Museum. They have a nice chess set collection there, and I'm really excited to get that from them. The Julian Levy Foundation gave us some of the photographs. And the Calder Foundation, Alexander Calder, and I'm sure if any of you are familiar with art in the major museums, those awesome giant mobiles hanging. He was also a draftsman, and he was young and not really well known at the time. And like some of these artists, like I said, some of them were well established, and some of them would go on to become some of the most important artists in 20th century, like Robert Lovers. We've got a reproduction of this back there. So the Calder Foundation loaned us these originals. That piece on the left, the musical score, that was loaned to us by an artist or a composer named Rietti, and that was lent to us by Marie Di Filippo, and she is the director of the Julian Foundation. So yeah, kind of.
So all of these are in the United States?
Yes.
Okay. So when you had the guest a few weeks ago who was talking about his own collection.
Georgine?
Yes, and yeah, thank you, because I never remembered it anymore. But he was also talking about Maryhill outside of Portland.
Yeah.
So do we have any of
We
those?
don't, and I do want to reach out to them and see if we could do some kind of traveling show with them as well. Any other questions on any particular pieces or the concepts of this exhibition? Yeah, please after the tour come back down and look at some of them. But you'll see that because we are doing something like mixing arts and culture and chess together, we never want to dumb anything down for anybody, and we never want to make anything too difficult for people to understand too. So if you know a ton about mid-century American art, you can come in here and be blown away, but if you don't know anything about it, we make sure that we've got, lots of didactics, we do lots of text, we do these great brochures that have essays from different scholars or experts, and we kind of do that, like even with our chess history floors. We want to make sure that chess grandmasters are going to go up there and be bored, but a person who doesn't know anything about chess will be like, I don't even know what this means, what this label means. So we try to make it really welcoming for people of all different interests to come and enjoy the institution.
I understand that this is fixed, this exhibition is fixed, but are you all still building your collection?
Absolutely.
Are there other areas that you're...
Yeah, so we are a collecting institution. We had about 3,000 objects that transferred from Miami when we started the 501c3 in St. Louis, so we transferred that into here. We pull out a lot of those to supplement exhibitions, or like right now, it's highlights from the permanent collections that we've collected in the last 5 years. And in the last 5 years, we can't actually keep up. We're like behind on putting everything in the system because we're getting so many donations, and we're buying a lot of great sets or items to supplement the exhibitions too. We think that we've increased the collection 10 times since we got here. So So we collect everything from, medals, trophies, photographs, chess sets, posters, stamps.
Artifacts from competitions over at the Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis. And we've gotten a few major donations that can fill you in on when we get up to the 3rd floor.
How about this? Tell us a little bit about what we do, grandparents and parents, when we come in with someone who's maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. How do we approach that?
I have.
Or should we not approach that?
No, I have a 4-year-old and she loves the place because she's, I was 12 weeks pregnant at the grand opening, so she's only known me working here. I don't think you have to go so into. I talked to her about the shapes of the pieces. She knows anything that's lined up like this is a chess set. I don't think she kind of differentiates between a tournament set and some of these fun decorative ones because she's got she's got a Christmas chess set at home right now, and she's got her stomping set that she can set up and she likes them. So I think she just likes the idea of a fun, challenging game. We do try to do things like we worked with the Magic House last year, and we did an interactive kids exhibition called Kings, Queens, and Castles. Next exhibition cycle, we're opening up chess and comics. And so that will be for adults, but there'll also be like stations in it. As I've watched her grow, I try to incorporate something into an exhibition. She makes me think very differently about how a child would approach an exhibition. So there'll be kids stations in there as well, and there'll be like a Batman chess set up where one will be on display, but there'll be one that people can sit down and play with too. So I really like kind of the interactive quality of that, and we're going to try to bring more and more kids-centered programming and exhibitions here.
And we have family days on Saturdays that have activities for kids. We have Tahoe Tuesdays with activities for the coolest ones.
Yeah.
And all of our floors have gallery attendants who are kind of like a free tour guide.
Yeah.
And they're always happy to kind of tailor things to the group that comes in.
Well, let's head up on the 2nd floor and look at that exhibition. So on our 1st floor, that's where we always have our art exhibitions, heavily centered around art. Our 2nd floor here is where we tend to do our shows that we would call general interest shows. Again, if you're a chess player or you're a chess set collector, you're going to come in here and be wowed. This is more of the anybody could come in here and just kind of be in awe, take it in, and look at the beautiful objects. So as we celebrated our 5th anniversary this year, we kind of wanted to look back to those first exhibitions. And we had opened up downstairs, it was a show called Out of the Box Artists Play Chess, and it was contemporary artists who incorporated art into the chess work. So that's what gave us the idea to go back to the original imagery of chess. This floor, we had a show that was premiere, highlights from a permanent collection of George McGee. And so it's been one of our most beloved shows. So 3 years after the show closed, we would have people coming in to see it again. Sorry, show's gone. So I know Rex was really excited to work with the deans again. They've been collecting for chess sets for 50 years. They have over 1,000 sets. They're also art collectors. They have Monets and Kusamas and Lichtensteins, and they big time art collectors. So we wanted to show more chess sets. We do a lot of chess set shows. So we want to make sure that they're not just doing another chess set show. Like, how can we make it unique and kind of give it its own identity? So we worked with the same independent curator, Larry List, out of New York, and he kind of came up with this concept of bridging together the materials, the tools, the specimens, and the chess sets. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily to talk more about that.
Okay. So this is the 3rd show that Larry List has curated at the World Chess Hall of Fame. He also did the other Dean show, but he also did a show about John Cage and Gwen Kino, who's a contemporary artist. And so in putting together this show, he was inspired by 2 sources, Carl Linnaeus's book about where he classified the natural world into the animal, vegetable, mineral kingdoms, and also Diderot's book about the arts, crafts, and sciences. So for each case, we sought loans that not only showcase the beautiful chess sets, but also showed the materials from which they were made, and in some cases we actually have videos of artists making similar types of chess sets or materials, so that you can kind of see, these beautiful pieces didn't just appear. They're the work of master artists. So in this case, behind you, we have, it might be kind of an unusual chess set that's modeled after tulips. So the pieces are very tall and kind of top heavy, and we supplemented them with these reproductions of beautiful botanical illustrations from the 19th century. And in a lot of cases, we tried to get contemporary imagery that would kind of give you an idea of the inspiration that these artists were working with. And you can actually see that these pieces would have been made on a lathe. And we have a video of a foot-powered lathe here. And it sounds a little bit unusual, but you can kind of get a sense of the artistry and talent of the people who made these types of sets. Another really interesting set that we have in the show is this one, which is modeled after butterflies and moths. And they're not generalized ones. If you guys all want to come closer, they're actually modeled on specific ones. So we got to work with a number of different institutions, not only to identify them, but also then to get examples of the butterflies and moths to put on the back. So we worked with the Butterfly House, scientists at WashU, staff at UMSL, to identify these based on their inscriptions on the bases, but since the set was made, those scientific names have changed. So it was a little bit like a detective story. And we also worked with the Butterfly House to learn how to install these pieces to put them on view. Some of these are from the Field Museum in Chicago, and they were collected by a 19th century naturalist. So the death's head moth, he would go to places in Europe, and in some cases he stole some of the pieces. He put them like under his hat and take them back here. Since these were Europeans, some of them are European species, it made it harder to find them in American collections. So this was kind of a challenging but fun aspect of the exhibition. And we have a guide, if you're curious. You might recognize the death's head moth that has, it looks like a little skull on its back. Another really interesting set is this rock crystal set, and it's one of only 2 sets that were made in this style. And the other one's in Louvre, and it's missing a piece. So we're really fortunate to be able to share it with our visitors. The deans are really generous to be sharing these loans with us because, they're really priceless. If you look very closely at the bottom of the set, the board is actually held up by a tortoise, which is a symbol of slow and determined warfare, according to the curator of the show. And we also have several examples of the raw minerals from which these sets would have been made. This is another example of us. We did a lot of work with local institutions. Most of the minerals that you see on view here are from WashU's Department for Science, and also from the Science Center. So in preparing for this show, our curator is in New York, so the registrar and I would go to a lot of these local collections and look through their samples, and then kind of find ones that please the curator. And so it was really interesting to go to the Science Center in particular because it was, it used to be a natural science museum, so they have these giant taxidermied animals, an anaconda from the World's Fair, and then also all of these minerals that we got to kind of, that are beautiful, and we got to pick through for the show. Let's see. This is one of the dean's favorite sets in their collection, and it's one of only 2 sets created by Fabergé. And they actually, when they purchased this, were interested in purchasing a different Fabergé set, and they were getting that one authenticated. And when they went to the showroom, they saw this one and they were just blown away. So they ended up purchasing this one, not the one that they were originally their hearts set on. But then later they bought the other one too. So in the first Dean show, they exhibited both of the Fabergé sets, and in this one, Larry decided to show this one, this particular set, because it has a really good example of several different mineral samples as well as metal techniques. Let's see. This is an ivory set that would have been created in China, and if you look closely at it, it's called a puzzle ball set because there are several balls carved within other balls, and you can see a wood carver using the same techniques to create a puzzle ball in wood. It's a very complex process, and so this would have been a set created for export, and it would have really shown off the expertise of the artist who created it. This one is a little bit different from some of the others. Some of them would show like British monarchy versus Chinese forces, but in this case, it's just very beautiful carving of Chinese figures. And if you look, let's see, some of them have these finely carved spheres, and those are all made from ivory as well. So you can't imagine how much skill and how steady their hands must have been to create these sets. And that's one of kind of the interesting things about doing these types of shows is that a lot of times, I think that when people think of a chess set, they think about one like this, which is like your playing style of set, but it really is an accessible way of introducing chess as art in these types of shows. And this is a Staunton style set, which Shannon mentioned during the tour on the first floor. And so that's kind of your tournament style playing set. And even though, you know, we kind of take it for granted as the form for a chess set, it was only created in the 1850s. And it's named for a very famous chess player who was inducted to the World Chess Hall of Fame this year. And if you look at the knights, they're based on the Parthenon frieze, the horses that were carved in that. And it was an effort to make a chess set that could be used by anyone around the world, because in the 19th century, that was when there was the start of international chess competitions. And so when people from different regions would compete, they would argue about what type of set to use because there were all of these regional styles. And so this was an effort to create the chess set that everyone would use, and it succeeded. Some of the more fun sets in the room are in this case. This is another example of an animal-inspired set, and these are all created in porcelain, and we have a video here of an artist actually creating this cast that's on view here. One of these is created by the Royal Dalton Company, the other by Meissen, and there's an image of Augustus the Strong, who founded porcelain works in Europe. In the back of the case, and this is actually the creator of this set that we have on view, which is kind of an Art Deco interpretation of these kind of classic styles of animal chess sets. Do you guys have any questions? There are a lot of sets, and I know that I've been there's some just for time that we've missed out, but please feel free to ask questions if you have any about any of the other sets in the room.
Where do the deans live?
They live in Michigan and Florida. They live sort of close to Detroit. And they've been collecting sets for over 50 years now. They started, their first set was a filigree set, which is this kind of beautiful gold jewelry inspired set. They went on a trip and they spent all of the money that they had budgeted on gifts for their family and friends on this one set because Vivian saw it in the lobby of their hotel and she was just kind of floored. And that started a passion for chess set collecting from the Deans. Dr. Dean is a founder of Chess Collectors International, which is a group dedicated to the promotion of chess sets as art and also exploring their history. They've been around for over 20 years now, and so part of his legacy is creating this group of friends and colleagues who explore chess set history.
So you were talking about a game that's played on opposite sides of the earth in different languages, from different historical traditions, who couldn't have related to one another. It took months just to get to from one place to the other. But everybody used the same pieces and the same rules. Is that right?
The rules changed over the years, and if you talk to someone in a different country, some countries had different names for the pieces. Like, I think in Germany, the bishop is the runner. In France, it was sometimes the fool, and it would, instead of being, it would be like a jester. So there are these kind of interesting regional and characteristics, but I think that, you know, one of the nice things about working here is you get to see how chess brings people together. Like, if you sit down at the chessboard and, like you were saying, like, you know the same rules, you can kind of relate in that way. Let's see. Like, at one point, the queen was an advisor figure that could only move one space. And then during the time of these kind of stronger queens like Isabella in Spain, that changed to where she can kind of traverse the whole board. So there are a lot of girl power. Yeah, that's, I guess, a kind of a whole other subject. But yeah.
But that was the last major change in the game, was the giving the queen more power. But yeah, it's so interesting to see, like, a game that's 1,500 years old is virtually unchanged and played by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, at the chess club, you can sit down with anybody and play.
What do you think is the draw for people who maybe don't play chess or don't have a connection to chess? Why is it important? Why would people come in? Do you have, is there a kind of
Hall of
a...
Fame? I think it's just an unbelievably unique institution. I think that the one thing that we hear all the time is, wow, I never knew ... And that they kind of get that with each exhibition we've done. You know, we've done chess and hip hop, chess and fashion, you know, some of these more traditional shows. But I think it's just a really fun way to learn something new. I've been working in museums for 20 years, and I just love some of these more unique, like, niche museums, and I think they're just really fun and kind of open up a new way of learning.
That's a great question, though. I get asked that a lot just because we market to everyone. People say, who's your target audience? And it's really everyone, but people go, but I don't play, or I've never played, I don't want to play. All of the answers that we get, and I ultimately come back to, it expands your mind, it expands your world. So even if you come away with one thing, you have been made more intelligent, more aware, more exposed to something that even if I go to the Science Center, I may actually see something that I already knew. I feel like many people here, you're going to see something you never knew. So it's really fun in that way.
Outside of the love of chess from the same fields, I think that this institution is so suited for St. Louis. You know, I'm not from St. Louis, I've only lived here for 9 years, but one thing that I was kind of blown away by when my husband and I moved here was just the uniqueness of its cultural institutions, or it's just always some kind of fun, quirky, unique store or museum or garden. So I just think it kind of fits in with the landscape of St. Louis really well.
And when people say I don't play chess, I go, well, you should try because it will make you smarter. And then I also say, I didn't think I could play either, and I have a 2-year-old. And back to your question, Debbie, who asked about the children? Oh, Suzanne. About children and chess, and I've actually really now, through the work across the street of chess in schools, I'm really understanding the value in not just younger people starting to play, but when you're older. I hear Mike Matheny talk about getting his mind rehabilitated after playing baseball. He attributes some of that to chess playing, and so I sit at a board with a 2-year-old, and I'm actually having aha moments, or an app. I'm having aha moments at the same rate and the same level as a 2-year-old, which I don't know how that says my intelligence, but I go, there are a few things in life where we as adults can actually be going, okay, they can only move that together, and you're high-fiving and learning at the same rate. That's pretty thrilling. So I also say it just makes you smart. Try it. Even if you only make tiny steps in the next 15 years, it's a game with yourself.
I think one of our goals is that you know, a few years ago, and I hope we're changing it, is if you thought about the word chess or what a chess player looked like, I think everyone had a pretty concrete stereotype of what a chess player represented. And what we're trying to do is show that that's not always the case and then change it. So we had a big initiative about women last year. And so we had a show about all the female artists, and then we did a historical show about female important revolutionary chess players who were often overlooked. Like even in the journals, they would cover the men's tournaments and kind of ignore the women's tournaments. We started a female chess lesson called Ladies Night, which was the show title, so we transferred that. And it was basically like, hey, middle-aged women that haven't played chess since they were 7 or never knew, and you think that chess is intimidating, here's some wine, here's some cheese, here's a female grandmaster is going to teach you how to play chess, and it's going to be light and comfortable. And that class, we had to move it out of its space. It got so big, it has far exceeded when that exhibition closed, the class still goes on. And so there is this idea that more girls can play chess. Because when kids are younger, it's about 50-50 of boys and girls. And then puberty hits and all the girls start playing. And then women are too intimidated later on to go back because it's hard. And I've been in the art world for a long time, and art is hard. But we try to make it that it's not. And that to create an inviting environment to kind of see things differently. Yeah. So on our 3rd floor, this is where we really concentrate on chess history, chess memorabilia, chess archives, and artifacts. We also house the U.S. and the World Chess Halls of Fame plaques. We are not involved with any of the inductions, so we get a lot of praise for some of the people that get in, and a lot of, what would be the appropriate word?
Suggestions.
Criticism, yes, for who is in and who's not in, and we always have to say, we didn't pick them, they're not involved. So we've got, these great contributors to the game kind of overlooking this space, which is always kind of very inspiring. When we opened 5 years ago, the first show we did was highlights from the permanent collection that came out from the old World Chess Hall of Fame. And so again, it kind of seemed fitting that we would kind of celebrate some of the objects that we have acquired in the last 5 years. There are 100 objects represented in this, and it's kind of fun because we'll see something for sale, like one of these photographs, and it's like, I don't know what we're going to use that for, but I have to have it. And luckily, a show like this, we kind of can pull out a Dave Matthews Band poster and the Flintstone and the chess set in the same show and kind of bring it all together. So I'll let Emily chat about it.
Okay. So our collection is very eclectic. It has anything from chess photography to score sheets from the strongest chess tournaments ever held on American soil. And so one of the fun things about doing a show like this is you get to do something that has things like these fun chess sets that are really accessible to maybe someone who's a newcomer to chess. But we can also do things that are really exciting for people who are really have an interest in the history of the game. Like we have this manuscript that was donated to us where Boris Spassky, who famously competed against Bobby Fischer, talks about how he's nervous or how Bobby Fischer's going to beat him, in a couple years. So the other thing about this show is that it kind of pays tribute to several of our significant donors of the past 5 years. We've been very fortunate to have donations not only of materials from the Chess Club and Scholastic Center, which are highlighted around the corner, but also from the family of Jacqueline Piatigorsky, who is a member of the Rothschild family. She's a strong chess player herself, and she also organized some of the strongest chess tournaments ever held on American soil. She's actually one of our newer members of the U.S. Chess Hall of Fame. You can see her plaque over there. And so, if you look over here, this is kind of, I think, one of our most spectacular donations that we've gotten in the time that we've been in St. Louis. It's the trophy for the Piatigorsky Cup tournaments, which until the Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis started organizing the St. Cup, they were the strongest tournaments. This trophy was designed by Jacqueline. She got the Central Cup from Tiffany and Company, and you can see the names of some of the winners. Unfortunately, the tournament was only held twice. It was a really big undertaking because it was this effort to bring chess players from around the world to the United States, and it was at the height of the Cold War when the strongest chess players were from the Soviet Union. So her husband was actually Gregor Piatigorsky, a very famous concert cellist. And so when he would go back to his home country, he would help her with the negotiations, like, oh, you know, you like having me come here to judge the Tchaikovsky competitions. Shouldn't you let these chess players go to the U.S. to compete in my women's chess tournament? And so one of the interesting things about this donation is that it not only has materials about that chess tournament, but she was very forward-thinking and kind of foreshadowed some of the efforts that we do over at the chess club. She organized chess efforts for women, for people with hearing disabilities. She also prisons, and one of her biggest passions was schools and scholastic chess, and she organized a competition that we still hold here today, which is the U.S. Junior Closed Championship, which includes some of the best young players from around the country. So we use artifacts from this collection in nearly every show we hold, just because her influence was that great. So we have artifacts like this, but we also have many, many ads in the collection. Chess, Shannon was talking about the stereotype of it, and I think one of those is, you know, we were talking about chess making you smarter. So a lot of companies would use chess imagery in their ads, especially during the 60s and 70s when Bobby Fischer was rising to prominence in the US. This is actually a lot older, but it's one of my favorite ads that we have. It's a Bakelite ad with home appliances as the chess pieces. And we have this Fun Heart Skis ad, which my research assistant discovered was specifically designed because Bobby Fischer was really popular, and they created a line of skis where it went from pawn to king based on your skill level. So these ads kind of help us tie chess into popular culture. Another really significant donation that we got in the past 5 years was from Raquel Brown, who is the wife of Walter Brown, who is a prominent American chess player. And he had a magazine called Blitz Chess, which was dedicated to a variant of chess with faster time control, so basically you have less time to make moves. So these are a number of artifacts, and you can kind of see how diverse it was. We have so many photographs because of his organization of that magazine. He would send people around the world to chess competitions, but we also have really fun things like this modernist chess set, which we think he was given so that he could promote it, because after Bobby Fischer, he was kind of like the big star in American chess. And so these pieces are designed based on their moves. And the creator was talking about, it's kind of, I'm trying to think of his description. He had this little bit hippie-ish kind of way of describing this set, but you can look at the knight, and it's an L shape, kind of like the move of the knight. This is a photo of Walter Brown. He is actually the first winner of the U.S. Junior Closed Championship, so I decided to get that out because it kind of nodded both to the artifacts that we have on display in that case, due to Jacqueline founding the U.S. Junior Closed Championship, but it also connects to the chess club artifacts that we have over there. And this is a medal he won that was designed by Cartier. So it was special because it was the 50th incidence of that chess competition, so they kind of went all out. Let's see. This is a chess set used in an exhibition match by Garry Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov. It was held in New York, and it was actually called like a 3D chess match because you could subscribe, and you were supposed to be able to see the players moving the pieces in 3D. So this is a very unique chess set. Inside this box are like the technical components for it, and we have several other objects in the show. There's a photo of Kasparov and Karpov here, and then World Chess Championship competition posters. And that's because I think their rivalry really captured attention, and so we there were lots of different materials made around that. We have a number of chess photographs from our collection on this wall. This one actually nods to St. Louis chess history. There was a competition called the U.S. Chess Open that was held here in 1941. And so you can see the competitors. It's actually a very small group now. Like the U.S. Open is one of the biggest competitions in the U.S., but then they would have like a smaller select group that would compete. And this is one of the other really interesting artifacts in the show, and it's the CPO Cup, which is the trophy for a competition held across the street every year since 2013. And it brings some of the best chess players in from around the world, kind of like the Piatigorsky Cup did. And we see the CPO's contributions to chess and promoting it in the United States as somewhat of like a continuance of what started in the 60s with Jacqueline Piatigorsky. So we have not only the CPO Cup on view here, but a photo of one of the winners holding the cup over his head after winning. And this is created by Harry Benson, who's a very famous photographer. And we had a show of his work that depicted Bobby Fischer, which Shannon curated or organized. And so the Chess Club brought him in to photograph the 2014 Sinkfield Cup.
Yeah, Harry Benson had 2 jobs in his life that he tried to get out of before he had to go ahead and go through with it. One was in 1964, he was assigned to the Beatles for their US tour. He wanted nothing to do with it. He didn't think they were like a great band. He didn't think they were gonna go anywhere. Came over, he had like this cool, like really important photo mission in Africa, like that got shut down and he had to go to the US with the Beatles. He is the guy who took the famous pillow fight picture. So he's photographed like every living president in his lifetime.
James Brown.
Yeah, every famous person. And then the other thing that he didn't want to do is he was assigned to follow around Bobby Fischer in 1971 when he started all of his tournaments that led up to the 1972 US Championship. And in fact, he's taken like all the iconic photographs of that were in Time magazine, Life magazine. I know I always say the wrong one. Life magazine, and he actually is the one who told Bobby that Boris Spassky resigned and that he won.
And he said that that's like one of his favorite
Yeah, he and
assignments
Bobby
after being upset.
yeah, he and Bobby became very, very close.
So it was really special to be able to get him to come
And hear
to
the
the
stories.
U.S. to St. Louis to photograph this competition.
Mhm.
And this is just one of the photographs that he took that we have in the collection. We have a number of others.
Mhm.
Do you guys have any questions?
Hey, what did you guys think? It's our first curator-led tour, so you're our guinea pigs. Tell us anything next time, share feedback. We want to
Please.
hear from you guys. I think you.
You should let people know that there's events up here, because I came to an event here a couple Sundays ago. But you guys have events
Yeah,
here.
the December magazine event.
Yes.
Yes.
I came to that, and it was really,
You're
I mean,
right.
I've been to, but they also have monthly events, I believe.
Oh,
So
monthly
as well.
series, yeah.
We have a lot of programming that we're so proud of. So we do a monthly music series on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. We work with Bjorn Brandheim, who is with the symphony. And we had a brilliant man, Mark Thayer, who left a few months ago. And we do all kinds of regional bands. And depending on the state of the exhibition, we can deinstall and take everything out. So, sorry.
People tell me they think it's the best deal in town because for $10 you get a 1-hour concert with nationally recognized musicians, and 1 hour is a really nice time because then people go for dinner, a drink and an appetizer, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're right, it's like a Mexican secret.
It is.
Although we have capacity of about 100, and we've been getting really close to that every week, every month, which is awesome. You know, we keep saying, you know, people are by word of mouth coming and learning about it, but surely we're always wanting more people.
And you can do an event here as well.
Yes, you can do a private event,
Yeah.
exactly.
And you just, it's on this floor and you move.
That's exactly right. So we've gotten into this idea of movable walls so that when it comes time for music series or private events, we are able to deinstall.
We also have quarterly composer series with musicians from the St. Louis Symphony. We have usually once or twice a month, we have art events in the attic. They're a lot of fun. It'll be things inspired by the exhibition. Last night we had coloring, we had gem soap making inspired by the minerals on the second floor. We have collage with Douglas. We had design your own chess piece with Tom Huff.
Those are called sip and sketch. People love it.
Those are a great time.
Yeah. So thank you for raising that.
I might have missed this. On this cup, do like the winners take it, or does it stay here? Do they just get a picture with it?
This is the perpetual trophy, so it stays here and it's inscribed with the names of the winners, and the same with the one that was over there. But then each winner gets a smaller version of it inscribed with their name.
So he had a picture with this one.
Yes. Yeah.
Then he got a smaller.
Yeah, he got a little one. We did a show about the Piatagorski Cups a few years ago, and so we were trying to track down the small presentation trophies for that, which turned out to be pretty complex. We weren't able to get them, but we know at least one of them is out there.
Any other questions?
And this gets filled up with names.
Thank you. I know everyone's time is precious.